Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pause newsletter. I'm here with Phyllis Reid-Jarvis. Hi, Phyllis. How are you doing?
Hello, I am doing really, really great. Hi, Mara. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm really, really glad to have this conversation with you. It's exciting because this is the first edition of the Pause newsletter. We're going to be introducing a new resource for you guys to really gain value from what Phyllis is doing in the leadership community. This section of the newsletter is to dive into the people that are contributing to the leadership space. Like I mentioned, we have Phyllis Reid-Jarvis from Ultimate Potentials based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yeah, let's just jump right in. Phyllis, you ready to go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Totally
Okay,
excited.
perfect. How about before we dive into these questions, you actually tell me a bit about yourself and what are some things that your community might not know or would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, those are great questions, and I can't wait to bite into them. But I think maybe just for the sake of our listeners,
Mm.
uh, tell them a little bit about you. So why are you here interviewing me? Who are you? How are you connected with Ultimate Potentials?
Wow, the table just turned real quick. So I collaborate with Phyllis as a social media manager, as a content strategist, and just the creative side of the things that you'll see coming out of Ultimate Potentials this year. Phyllis brings, the content. She brings the value, she brings the knowledge, and I just make it so it's the most appealing to you guys, and I make it as digestible as possible. So that's kind of how we collaborate. And it's just been a beautiful, fruitful partnership thus far. It's been pleasant working with Phyllis, and I can't wait to see what Phyllis has in store for you all.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is wonderful. And I tell you, everyone, she makes it sound as if she doesn't really do a lot, but that creative side, that really bringing I would say, using technical skills and then marrying it with that creative side is what
Mm,
really brings this work to life. And
absolutely.
as Aymara just said, this is one of the ways in which we are committed to bringing great value to you through
Mhm.
this newsletter and through some of the other things that we'll reveal in 2024. So I just want to, give you that opportunity, Aymara, to let folks know you're just not an interviewer, but playing a critical role in helping Ultimate Potentials to reach and meet its desired goals for its community. So thank you. I believe I heard you asked, tell me a little bit about you and what would people be surprised to know about me. It's why our newsletter is called Pause, actually. So over the years that I have been really just pausing, stopping, going within and connecting with my true self, the real Phyllis. That's when I realized that how I really present myself into the public as more of an extroverted person, and I really am. I believe I'm a bit of a both extroverted and introverted.
Mhm.
And yet, most people would be surprised to know that my introverted side, which I've had the pleasure of developing over many, many years. I've come to know that deeper, previously untapped side of
Mm,
me. I love it. So most people would be surprised to
yeah.
know that I crave silence. I
Mm,
love silence. I love being by myself. And I'll say alone, but not that I am lonely. I am not lonely. I'm actually just in a great state of peace. So I
yeah,
spend
solitude.
time deliberately
Hmm.
alone. And folks who know me, because I've always used my voice throughout my entire career of more than 30 years. So I've used my voice, radio, TV, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, large workshops. I use it locally, nationally, internationally, and I'm always out there under the cameras, right? Always in front of and yet, when I say to folks who don't really know me, I crave silence. And I actually not just crave it, but I create and I hold the space for me to be in silence. And I think that's one thing that folks would be surprised to know about me.
I
Absolutely.
love it. I love that. That is so powerful. So I have to give you credit. Phyllis came up with the name Pause. I had no creative input on that one.
Yeah, we've been using pause for quite a while. I'm going to say easily, we're pushing maybe 9, 10 years using
Oh,
pause.
when she
So
mentioned it, I was like, that is it. That's the one. And so, no, it's such a powerful concept because we live in such a loud world. There's constantly notifications, constantly conversations, and taking that pause and connecting with your true self is it's the only way to show up as your best self. Because if you don't know your true self, you're just showing up as, whatever your environment looks like. So that is
yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Phyllis.
Yeah.
Uh, so diving into, you said you had like 30 years of experience using your voice in all these
Mhm.
types of facets, but I really wanted to zoom in on that experience you had as a registered dietitian. Okay,
Mhm.
that is such a fun fact. So I wanted to dive into what pivotal moments in your career as a registered dietitian inspired you to transition. There's a lot of shins happening. Inspired you to transition to this leadership coaching
Mm.
realm, right? So what was that pivotal moment in that career?
Yeah, so before I share how I actually transitioned into the organizational development world, which I absolutely love, I
Yeah.
think we owe it to my community, just to say, how did I end up becoming a dietitian and what I was doing then?
Mm,
And that's the Coles Notes version, because remember, I was a dietitian for almost the better part of 20 years. And so in my 30-year career, right, it's about 10 years organizational development, almost 20 years as a registered dietitian. I did a lot of work. So I stumbled on that profession, to tell
mm,
you the truth. So I
wow.
did, I wasn't like born and all my life I wanted to be a dietitian. Some people have that clarity from the very get-go.
Yeah.
That was not my case. I was being trained to be a teacher. I even entered teachers college and did a year as a teacher trainee in the sciences. And then because of immigration, when I came to Canada with my family, I decided, of course, I'm going to continue on with my post-secondary studies, and ended up in university and thought I would become a microbiologist. And I finished that first year, and I'm glad you're laughing, because my first science experiment in the microbiology lab was to grow cultures. And the
Mm,
professor had us taking samples from our ears and nose and all parts, and then just wiping it on a petri dish and then setting it aside to grow. And so within 3 to 5 or 7 days later, the professor brought out the cultures and showed us ours. And I saw all this germ. To me, I did not see culture, I saw germs.
yeah,
And I
yes,
said,
got
yeah, I'm done with microbiology.
it. Didn't take much, hey?
Didn't take much. But the
Yeah.
long and short of it is that microbiology ended up being a requirement on my dietitian's journey. So I ended up going into human ecology. It's now called, I believe, the Department of Food and Nutritional Sciences at
Mm, okay.
and my then advisor asked me my goals. I had shared the goals with him, and Dr. McDonald said to me, well, why would you stop at being a nutritionist? Because I had seen this person on TV being interviewed, and they referred to themselves as a nutritionist. And I'm like, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to
Mm,
do that.
mm,
So I proudly said that to Dr. McDonald, who was my advisor at the time. And he said, well, why would you stop at being a nutritionist? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, there's more. I'm like, what more? What else is there?
mm.
And he said, you could be a dietitian. I'm like, really? What is that? He told me. And in that moment, I said, yep, then I'll become a dietitian. And I did. Nothing could stop me. Even
Love it.
my fourth year professor, one of my fourth year professors, I asked for a letter of reference from this professor,
Mhm.
and I actually was a very, very strong student. So getting pretty good grades. I'd gotten the Alumni Association Award for high GPA, et cetera, et cetera. I know.
Okay.
But I could only score at best a B in this professor's course.
Oh,
But
wow.
nonetheless, very well known in our community. I said, I got to become this dietitian that I had said to Dr. McDonald, and it required us to do an internship program. So I asked for a letter, a meeting And I very excitedly, and I'm in my fairly young then, late 20s, because immigration, you're kind of late in doing a lot of stuff, so to
Mm,
speak.
mm.
And I said, Professor so and so, I was just wondering if you would consider standing as a referee for me because I am going to apply to become a dietitian. And the professor said, sure. I don't think you'd like what I have to say, though. And I'm
Mm.
like, think to myself, oh man, wonder if she thinks that I'm too young. But luckily, I didn't say anything. I didn't say that. I just said, oh, what do you mean by that, Professor so and so? And the professor rolled up their sleeve, did this. So it took me about 10 seconds or so.
Wow.
And I said, do you mean because of the color of my skin? Like I wasn't sure what she meant. And she did this. Interview is over. And
Are you
it
kidding?
dawned on me. Oh, and she said, we don't want your kind in our program.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you. Like this happened some 31 years ago. That's what this professor told me.
Hmm.
But I I am like a dog with a bone.
Hmm.
You tell me I can't do something, consider it done. So I was devastated naturally
That
because
makes
where I came from, Jamaica, we never identified as Black people. We're Jamaicans.
yeah.
So we have a rich kind of this culture of being Jamaican. So to
Yeah.
come to Canada to learn that I was Black was very, very, it was jarring. It was just really, it's a disconfabulating kind of a feeling. I'm
Hmm.
thrown this cognitive dissonance, all the things that, you get knocked
Culture
off.
shock. Yeah. Yeah.
Went down into the washroom, locked the door, and had a good cry. I was bawling actually. And
Jeez.
I'm like, well, how am I going to get into this program? You need 3 letters of references. And I'm like catastrophizing really. And then I heard a voice said, Phyllis, what are you doing? You stop this crying. You go outside and wash your face, and you're going to ask and so for letters of references, and you'll get it. Okay. Did that, went up. I asked the other professors, one of which, really, one of whom I was an A student in that professor's course. Actually, 2 of them. Yeah, all 3 of them come to think of it. So I just went and they're like, happily to do it, Phyllis. So I got my letters of reference and applied and I got in. So did my internship and I worked, as I said, for the better part as a dietitian. I was primarily a community-based dietitian because I love community
Mm.
and I love meeting people just before it's too late because I feel it's not overly late when you're in hospital, but it's
Mhm.
extremely traumatizing and just a lot of burden on someone when you're sick and hospitalized. But
Yeah.
what if I could help you avoid going to the hospital and help you stay healthy and get better at being healthy,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? That was my work for the better part of 20 years. Absolutely loved it. I had some of the most amazing clients, some of whom shared with me, I saved their marriages, I saved their lives, I've saved the life of their children because it was a general practice
Yeah.
and I had adults, teenagers, uh, I had older adults, I had, middle level age folks. I
Mm.
had, you name it, anorexia nervosa. I would do some of that work, things related to obesity and just digestive disorders, high blood pressure, name the disease state. I would do it because they're all public health
Right.
states.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And I also ended up just being able to work with some amazing people at CBC Radio, where I had my own segment called Food for Thought on CBC Radio. I notice there's a theme.
Mhm.
So it's something that always starts within me. I'm an educator at heart. I didn't know this in the early days, but it was just from working in my various capacities, professional capacities, volunteer capacities, that I
Mm.
started to notice a trend. So I always wanted to educate people, provide tools for people, as well as making sure that whatever information people have at their fingertip, I guess it's their fingertips, they could work with it with confidence, knowing that it's reliable, that it's credible. And of course, my professional training and background all go to ensure that I understand how to glean information, how to sift through information, and then the educator in me helped to peel it away so that people can relate to it. So yeah, my segment, Food for Thought, was just that I wanted people to pause. So it's a way of saying stop and think
Yeah.
about your either the source of information. In that example, it was nutrition that I was talking about, food and nutrition there at the time, and still now. Maybe there are lots of diets and things that are magic pills being
Mm.
promised people for a lot of money. And so I wanted people to pause. I wanted people to stop and think, what do I value regarding my own well-being, my state of well-being? And if I can identify what I value, then I am better set to ask myself, are the actions that I take on a regular basis do they align with what I say I value?
Mhm.
Or the people with whom I say socialize, hang out with, and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
they are their values and my values, do they align?
Right.
And so that's the kind of dietitian I've always been. I'm a public health dietitian, right?
Yeah.
So my stint with CBC Radio allowed me to do that. So I could take information
Yeah.
from the news, studies that's coming up, situations that's happening to the Canadian population, and peel it away and give it out in food for thought, bite-sized pieces to people,
Mhm.
and with some tools, some strategies. And that's what I do with Pause, as you know, right? So
Yeah.
Pause is actually one of our tools that we use to show primarily leaders. And when I say primarily leaders, we all are leaders. So we have formal leaders in terms of they are given a formal title,
Mm.
and we also have those among us who might not have a formal title, but still are leading themselves. So
Mhm.
we are always our first leader. And
Yeah.
so years of working as a dietitian, I ended up learning that I was really my first client in the sense that not from a nutrition point of view, but that leadership point of view. And there were lots of little things I didn't know about leading and managing a business, that being in that role propelled me to learn most of it the hard way. So
Mm.
lots of falling, and sometimes I didn't fall facing upwards. So it was a little tough getting back up.
Yeah, I
But
hear
I
that. I've been
got up.
there. Been there
Yeah,
numerous
I
times.
got
Yeah.
up.
That's the
So
best way to learn, in my opinion. You gotta fall. And there's something about this generation that says, you gotta, everything you do, you gotta succeed. But I feel like it's the opposite. Like you have to fail and learn, and that's the best way to do it, right?
and in fact, if you're always succeeding, it means you're probably playing it safe, believe it or not.
There you go.
If
Yeah. That's
everything, look at some of the biggest and most societally successful people where we judge or we qualify success as having lots of money,
mm,
which I know that that's not success. It's just a result of inner success. People pausing long enough to know what they value, what are the intention that they want to live by, and how do we create actions and so on to fulfill those intentions. But nonetheless, we look at what's happening in society, not just now, from forever. The
mm,
most successful people, they will always have several stories of failure to share with you. Because
absolutely.
if we're always just succeeding, everything we touch, it's easy. We are not challenging ourselves and we're playing it safe. So
100%.
we have to step outside of that comfort zone. And it's in
Absolutely.
harbor. of the unknown that we actually grow, and that's where we become better versions of ourselves. And that requires a big amount of pause, like regular pausing, just, hey, do that check-in. Yeah. So yeah, used to do the food for thought column, and so ended up, I had a really great career. There's lots and lots of challenges. Another time we'll poke at some of those.
For sure. Yeah, that can
Yeah.
be its own podcast episode, I feel.
Oh,
Just
I think so
different
too.
challenges. Yeah. You know, something resonated with me when you mentioned the relationships that you formed and, you know, over your years of working as a dietitian. It wasn't only focused on the nutrition aspect. You were able to, like you said, help people in their personal lives. And that really stands out as one of your core values. So let's just dive into core values, because I feel like I'm familiarizing myself with who you are, and it seems to be relationships is priority, that transparency within relationships, leadership, of course, learning, freedom, human rights, you know, so that is definitely, I feel like that's all encompassing of Phyllis Reid-Jarvis. And so I want to dive into that, and those being your core guiding principles. Can you share like a specific instance where these principles guided a decision or an action recently that people can learn from? Because I really want to illustrate how crucial it is to have guiding principles, to have values. You can't live life without them, because we dive into later in the newsletter when you continue reading on how decisions will influence the outcome of your life. So if your decisions are not built on a solid foundation of values, who knows where you're going to end up, right? So I wanted you to share a specific instance where your core values guided a decision or action within the workplace, personal life, wherever you can.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the question. As a number of decision-making moments. And so I'm going to choose this one. It happened just recently. I was working with a colleague of mine, and long and short of it is, we had this very large contract with a client, and we were co-facilitators for the training. I was doing all the coaching, but we would do the workshops, deliver the workshops together. So we would co-facilitate. And at first, you know, just a brilliant woman. When we first met, just the nicest person ever. And I remembered the first time we went to the client. So this is an international client. We flew to this country, and we are training. And I remember during the break, one of the first breaks, she came to me and she said, you know, I really think they're going to like you better than me. They're going to like you more than they like me. And I'm like, what made you say that? I was thrown by it. She said, no, I just think they're going to like you more. In fact, I think they're going to just go with you and not have the two of us continue. I don't know if it was premonition, if she saw something, but the long and short of it is, this colleague of mine, my former colleague, proceeded from that day on to bully me. It was a psychological bullying experience. And if you know me well enough, I'm a pretty confident person. You do not walk over me. So I knew that it was distressful what she was doing. However, I thought about it as her having some challenges, because she did share some mental health challenges that she does suffer from as well before I met her. So I thought it was just heightened by this work. We're in a foreign country and so on. So I was super, super supportive, really wanted to work on the relationship, you know, and had made that commitment to support each other. Long and short of it is, I was bullied like that for about 3 years. Wow. And yeah, and I was getting sick, but I didn't know why. So I had a lot of digestive problems. My gut just was not happy. And when I feel or get insights, intuition, it comes to me from my gut. So I can be in the presence of someone for the very first time, and my gut will send a message and say, this is a great person. You're going to have a lifelong relationship with each other. And true to form, yes. Or my gut will say, just quickly find an excuse to leave. You will not continue. And I,
At least
again,
your gut has a, sense of humor.
I know it's beautiful, actually. So, and because I've been practicing pause since my dietitian years, I didn't do it then because there was a lot of stuff I just didn't know and I didn't have the
Mm,
coaching part of how I've developed now as an organizational development consultant and as an educator. I didn't have all of this at the time when I was a dietitian, but as
right.
they were built, I had the opportunity to practice them. And so with this colleague of mine, by the end of the second year, entering our third year of being treated the way I was being treated. And I'm telling you, she would publicly criticize me in front of our clients, chewed me out once. I remember, and I was whispering to her, can we wait and do this after? Because I'm thinking, oh, maybe she doesn't know that she's not to do this, right? But she
Mm,
knew. So she did that to me. And then a lot of other psychological, it's called it's almost like it's bullying. And
yeah.
then where my values came into play, so the relationship had gone sour. I had offered for us to, I said I would pay for us to get a counselor to work with so that we could learn how to work with each other. That was denied. So the learning part was just, ignored by her. She's like, no, not interested. The human rights, I felt like my human rights was being trampled upon. And so the
Mm-hmm.
relationship had gone sour. I didn't see much leadership coming from her side of things.
Mm,
And what broke the proverbial camel's back, the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, was she, um, I remember we would always meet with the CEO of the company. The three of us would meet
okay.
because I played a critical role in the program. And this time in question, where all three of us sat down in the boardroom, getting ready to meet, and she turned to me and she said, Phyllis, will you excuse us, please? So I was surprised, but I'm a diplomat. So I'm like, oh, certainly. So I left. And I said, mental
Oh,
note to
that's
self,
certainly.
you are going to ask her what is going on here, but certainly not a problem. So I left, did her piece. And it turned out that after the meeting, we are back at our hotel room, and she said to me, you will not be on this contract when we renew it. I wish I had not brought you on board. And I'm thinking, why would you say that? All the leaders say that they're learning, they love the work that I'm doing. The CEO, I was coaching the CEO twice a month. You know, every 2 weeks, the CEO and I would meet. I was told I literally helped him save the company. And I'm thinking, if I'm getting those kinds of feedback, why would he not want me to be on board?
Mm,
So at first I was just going to walk away, but as you know me, dog with a bone, I
yeah.
don't walk away. So I said, well, enough is enough. This has gone on long enough. We're going to bring this out into the open. So I sent a message to the CEO and I said, I understand that I won't be invited back on this contract. And I'm just curious if you could help me understand why.
Mm,
What? I never said any such thing, he said. Let's have a meeting. So he calls this meeting and so sends an email. The colleague is CC'd on the email. I'm on the email and he's there. Emergency meeting. The colleague now messages me privately, hey, do you know what this is about? I did not answer. Guess
mm.
who didn't show up for the meeting?
Oh boy. People are something else. You really do have to protect yourself. You
You
really,
have to,
you have to. And
and
so,
not to be paranoid, right? You don't want to
yeah.
be paranoid, right? Because I feel that paranoia, if you think people are going to hurt you, they will hurt you
Yeah.
because that's the energy you're giving off.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm,
So for me, I was wide open, and the CEO he had my back. He said, the work that you're doing is vital to this organization. If anyone's going to leave, it will be so and so. I remember in the early days, that's what so and so had said. They're going to like me better and they're going to ask them to leave. And that's what happened. And this was 2.5 years after this person said it. So the value that really came to play there was my human rights, the right for healthy relationships, and the right that I need to be free to be me. I felt like she wanted to curtail how I showed up and how I do my work, that it had to be done the way she wanted me to be like her.
Right.
And I'm saying that is not how we educate. Because if I can't be free to be me and bring the best parts of me out, how am I going to help the leaders recognize the need to also be their true selves so that they too can be better leaders, right? So those are some of the ways that the values showed up. Like I said, I could have walked away and not say anything, and I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm glad instead that I chose to use my voice.
Absolutely.
And I ended up having a great, like another 3 or so years running the contract, just being the lead person. I had some other beautiful consultants who joined me to facilitate that.
Fantastic. Honestly, listening to that story, I can pull there were so many opportunities to go about that the wrong way. I'll just say that. Like there were so many decisions and calls to make, and you stood by every single one of your values throughout that decision-making process. So thank you so much for sharing. We're gonna just get into some fun stuff. I kind of want to pick your brain and help people get to know Phyllis beyond ultimate potentials a little bit. During the workday, when you need to pause, which best describes how you prefer to do that? A, you take 5 minutes to sit and mindfully eat some chocolate. Or B, deadhead the plants while talking to them.
I love that question. I am deadheading my plants and I'm talking to them.
I love it.
I'm a gardener and I have plants indoors. And of course, it's wintertime here. And I have a lot, more than 30 odd plants are in my house. Okay. And that's my choice. That's my go-to.
I love it. I love that. Okay, next one. We're gonna do this like rapid fire. When you are faced with having to make a big decision, which best describes how you would weigh the pros and the cons? I think people can learn a lot from this. So would you A, call up a friend or a colleague to discuss it, or journal about it?
I don't have to think about that. I journal. Like I'm very introspective. And these are some of the things folks would be surprised about because again, I used to present as very outgoing, very extroverted, and I used my voice. I use my voice a lot, but it's where I get quiet and I just allow wisdom to come to me. And I literally will sit with that. That's the intention I set. Just let me know what I need to know or do or be or whatever. And I sit. So I journal about it.
That's fantastic. And that is such a great habit to pick up. Anyone who's watching this, if you have never journaled in your life, it's such a great introspective tool, and you'll be surprised as to how much you'll learn about yourself if you keep that a consistent pattern in your life. And then the last one here, which best describes how you like to unwind after a day of training and facilitating? You said you're using your voice consistently. Options are A, you call up a friend to connect, or B, you go for a long walk through the woods by yourself.
B, a long walk through the woods.
Yeah.
I have 3. There are lots of trees. I'm very, very, very lucky. I live very close by a forest, so that's my go-to. So it's like a few hundred meters and boom, I'm there. And I have 3 trees that grow, they just grow out of each other and they're big, they're old, they're oaks, and they're very old. And they're my friends for almost 20 years now. I have hugged those trees most days. And I literally, some days when I hug them, and I'm like, thank you. Because there's lots of wisdom, right? Coming. Sometimes I literally feel like they're saying, you're welcome.
That is amazing. You are so special, Phyllis. I had such an amazing time interviewing you, and I hope each of you stayed till the end and got a dose of who the mind master is behind Ultimate Potentials. That concludes our interview. And if you are interested in these videos and this type of content, make sure you subscribe at the very bottom and hit the follow us button. Continue to be notified when we post more content like this. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Phyllis?
No, you know what, thank you so much. Those were great questions, and I had fun, and I think you did too. I could kind of feel it.
I
Yeah.
definitely did.
So,
Yeah.
and is what I just want for members of our community to just see the fun behind this. We're learning as an educator. There's a learning component to it. It's really just becoming our better versions of ourselves, and doing so knowing that we are leaders, whether you have a formal title or no title, you're still a leader because you are your first employee. So
There you go. And I'm going to leave it at that because that's a great way to end it. You're a leader and you are your first employee. Okay. All right. I hope everyone has a beautiful happy holidays, happy new year, and we will see you at the top of 2024.
you get all the best, everyone.
Bye.